So welcome to today's video. In today's video, we're going to go through the motions of using ChatGPT. It is a crash course on ChatGPT. We're going to take you from zero. We're going to open up an account. We're going to show how to navigate the interface. And then we're going to show a few examples of what people are doing with ChatGPT and what you can do. And hopefully this will give you an idea of how you can begin to use the system on your own. Let's get started. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is go to chatgpt.openai.com. So as I mentioned in previous videos, ChatGPT is created by OpenAI, and this is the URL you need to go to in order to start using ChatGPT. So you need to sign up for ChatGPT. If you already have an account, you can log in, that's fine. But in our case, we don't have an account, and so we're going to go through the motions of signing up. So I am going to sign up using an existing email of mine. And then this is ironic, an AI system asking you to confirm that you're not a robot. And then it will ask you to do the classic image identification thing. Then it will ask you, it will then request you for a password. You have put in a strong password, as I'm sure you already know because of security issues. Then it will click continue. And now I am in, it's asking me to verify an email. So I need to go to this email account and verify the email. So let me go do that very quickly. So now it has given me a link, which I am going to copy and paste here so that it can verify the email. And yep, it has verified it. I'm going to tell them I'm Solomon. Now it's going to ask you for information. And the goal basically is that it's trying to sort of track who's using the system. Okay, so a quick update. I went to the FAQs to find out exactly why it's asking for phone numbers. And then here, why do I need to provide my phone number to sign up? They say that when you sign up for our platform, we do require a phone number to help us verify your account and ensure that our platform remains secure. We don't use your phone number for any other purposes, and we take your privacy very seriously. Thank you for understanding. So that's the reason that they give, and I wanted to give an accurate reason for that. So I'm going to give it my number. It's going to ask me for a code, a confirmation code. And once you put that in, you are essentially good to go. All right, so now you're done. Now you're ready to use ChatGPT. So signing up is that easy. It's going to ask you for your phone number. They do that for security reasons, but you definitely cannot bypass that. You have to put in a phone number of some sort. All right, so here this is a quick introduction. They're telling us that this is a free research preview and that their goal is to get external feedback in order to improve their systems. Up here, if you had noticed before this came open, it showed the word beta, which essentially beta, which essentially means that it's still in trial version or it's still in some sort of experimental stage. It's not yet a proper full release of the software. So they're doing a lot of testing. So they want to get a lot of feedback to improve the systems. And those of you who are following ChatGPT from the very beginning, you'll notice that there are so many things that you can't do anymore because they've been noticing what people are doing, and they've been sort of reducing and blocking off the functionality. Then they also give you a warning that while we have safeguards in place, the systems may occasionally generate incorrect or misleading information and produce offensive or biased content. It is not intended to give advice. So this is something that a lot of people are not getting about ChatGPT. ChatGPT is a tool that allows you to have a sort of starting point, not necessarily the final product. And a lot of people are looking at it as a final product, and yet it has places where it can give a lot of errors. There are places where it can really give you BS responses. So you need to be very careful how you use it, especially if you're using it for anything professional. I think that for fun and entertainment, it's fantastic, but for anything professional, you need to pay a lot more attention to the results it's giving you. So let's click next. So it's telling us that they collect data. So they'll be collecting and reviewing this information the conversations we're having by their trainers to improve their systems. They are requesting you do not share any sensitive information. And this is important because as you keep going, as you keep having these conversations with ChatGPT, it's easy to forget that you're having a conversation with a machine and that your information is being collected and sent out there. So if they're telling you that this information is going to be reviewed, then obviously there's someone at the back there who's going to look at this information at some point. It may or may not be, but it's better to be safe. So don't share anything sensitive about yourself. I would probably say that the most that you should give is your email and your phone number, which is already a lot. But that is unavoidable. Of course, you can create random email addresses. That's also possible. They would love to give feedback. So there are ways in which you can provide feedback within the system. And then you can also join the Discord server. I'm not going to join the Discord server because I'll pop that open and it will open up a lot of other random things that I do on Discord. So then when you're read through all this, you click done. Now on the left here, these are where your conversations are. So if you want to start a new conversation with ChatGPT, you click on new chat. You can also change to dark mode if you like. I like dark mode, but for the sake of this video, I'll keep it on light mode. You can open up the Discord. You can check out the FAQs and all the updates. And then here it's giving you a few examples. So we can take a look at some of these examples as a sort of beginning point to explore ChatGPT. So it's giving you some examples here. It's giving you the capabilities and the limitations. This is where you type in your prompts, your questions, or the conversation that you want to have. We'll come to that later. So under examples, it's given an example that you can ask ChatGPT to explain quantum computing in simple terms, or give you an idea for a 10-year-old's birthday, or write some code about making an HTTP request in JavaScript. So it's quite versatile, and we'll look at those examples later. Capabilities of ChatGPT. The really powerful thing about this, I've used a lot of AI systems, and most of the time they do not remember the context. So you can have a conversation now and then ask a follow-up question to something you asked it earlier, and it won't remember it. For example, if you ask Google Assistant or Siri, who are the actors in this movie, and then it gives you an actor, and then you ask a question like, what is his age? Some systems will not remember the he that you're talking about because they do not retain that context. Some systems like Google Assistant are getting better at that, but for many of them, they don't. ChatGPT is excellent. It will remember the entire conversation that you've had as long as you're still within that specific chat. It also allows you to provide corrections. So you can tell it that this is inaccurate. Can you change to this? And then it will correct itself. And sometimes people have manipulated that to actually get it to give wrong answers. It's also trained to decline inappropriate requests. What this basically means is that it will not accept anything shady that you ask it. Although, again, people have found ways around it. It's not something I generally recommend, but humans are weird. Limitations of ChatGPT may occasionally generate incorrect information. I've seen this happen a lot. I've seen a lot of examples where ChatGPT just gives blatantly wrong answers. And that's just the nature of its model, of its software. So be very, very careful. Do not take everything it says as gospel truth. Always cross-check your references in case you're using it for anything. ChatGPT may also occasionally produce harmful instructions or biased content. I've seen this example on Twitter, where people have basically asked it to do things like how do you make a bomb, etc. And at first it refuses, but then if you're kind of creative in how you ask the questions, it will eventually give you that. We are not going to explore any of that. And then it is limited to knowledge of the world and events before 2021. So it doesn't know anything that happened after 2021. So with that, let's start our conversation. Let's use this example. If you click here, explain quantum computing in simple terms. Actually, let's explore something a little bit more intentional. If you ask it, what is quantum computing? So it gives you a really robust answer. And a lot of this is actually really authentic information. So despite the warnings, ChatGPT actually provides some really, really helpful information. And this is something that a lot of people have been, shocked by, like the accuracy of some of its information, how it presents the data is actually really helpful. Now, the thing that you'll notice about ChatGPT is that it is conversational. So ChatGPT has been designed to have conversations, which basically means it will talk to you the same way another human would. Typically, when you ask a computer a question like this, or throw it in a search engine, it will just bring you raw data. It won't try to sort of sanitize that and make it easy to understand. It will be like, here's a link, or it will send you to some research paper, or it will quote a huge amount of text that the average person is not able to understand. So this is what it said about quantum computing. If you know quantum computing, this does make sense, but let's pretend that we don't. And so we tell it, explain that to me in simple terms. Now, things like that are the reason why context sensitivity is important. For most systems, when you say that, it won't know what that is because it's treating this as a completely new statement, as a completely new question. But ChatGPT remembers the conversation you're having. So when you say that, it's going to automatically assume that you're still talking about quantum computing. So it has really simplified this. So as you can see, it's not using words like quantum mechanical phenomena. It's not using superposition or entanglement, which are quantum computing terms. It's not using factorizing large numbers, etc. It's really simplified that. It's because it's quantum, it cannot avoid using the word quantum. But as you notice, quantum computers use the principle of quantum mechanics to store and process information, to perform certain types of calculations much faster than classical computers. So this is really helpful. And what you'll notice is that at the side here, this conversation has now been labeled. You can change it by clicking on the edit button and just rename it to something like quantum computing, and then click yes, or you can trash it and delete it. So let's just continue with this conversation just a bit. What are the current advances in quantum computing? So like I mentioned earlier, this is a really good starting point in case like you're trying to do research, or you're trying to do a blog post, or you're trying to write an article. This can really be helpful for the initial stages of your research. So you can pretty much ask about anything interesting to you or something that you're working on, and it will give you this sort of very usable foundational information, and then it's really up to you to try and build up on that context. So let's move away from quantum computing. Let's generate a new chat. So you click on new chat, and then let's ask it about food. How do I make American pancakes? I don't want to say I don't want to say our local pancakes, but anyway. Here's a recipe for American style pancakes. Ingredients. Isn't this cool? Like, I love pancakes, and this is actually really helpful. So it's giving me the instructions. This is cool. I like this. Right? And then look at this little note. This is like so cool. Now, this is a recipe, right? So if you had typed this in Google, for example, you'd be going to another site, and you know how these recipe sites are. They'll first tell you the background of how their grandmother used to cook amazing meals, and on Saturdays, blah, 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 blah. But this, straight to the point with the instructions. Let's go a step further. Prepare a shopping list for this. So now it's given us the menu. So it's given us the ingredients, it's given us the instructions, and then I've asked it to give us a shopping list. So yeah, all-purpose white flour, baking powder, salt, milk, eggs, right? So it's saying that you'll need a pan or griddle to cook the pancakes on. If you don't have a pan, you need to add that to the shopping list additionally. So you notice how very conversational this is, right? It's like someone saying, oh, by the way, I think you'll need this. Have you considered this, etc. So let me go a little step further. What if I cannot get butter? Let's just try that. Look at this. If you cannot get butter, you can try using a different type of fat, right? Vegetable oil, margarine, or blue band, as we call it in this part. Coconut oil, Greek yogurt. Isn't this amazing? Like, I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, I think maybe I should go make some pancakes. All right, so we've looked at descriptions. It has called this quantum computing, which is very interesting. Let's rename it. So this is clearly a bug. Let's rename this to pancakes. All right, let's drop this chat. Let's go into math. How do I find the factorial of 3,600? Let's give it an abstract number. This is accurate. I'm just laughing because of how it included a multiplication sign here and then immediately removed it. So ChatGPT is really not very good at math because this is so the factorial of 5 is 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, which is accurate. So this, if we needed to find the factorial, it will be basically telling us you need to do all these calculations. So let me see if it can write for me an equation to calculate this. Oh, look at that. This brings me back to high school math. So this is an equation to calculate that. All right, so this is basic math. So some people are using this to do homework, but I would not recommend this because I've seen it give some very wrong answers for mathematical equations. Let's do something a little bit more fun. Who write an article about the top 10 female artists in history. Now, this is an interesting question because I know that it's going to have some very interesting biases in terms of, because, you know, a question like this is very subjective, but let's see how it handles that. So this is an article. Oh, it's talking about artists, not artists. Okay, I should have said singers, but this is actually really helpful. These are actual female artists. So it's talking about artists. I wanted it to talk about singers, but this is still a good example. So I don't know these artists except for Monet. Oh, Artemisa. I also know Artemisa. So this is a full blog post. Now, if you don't know anything about art and you just copied and pasted this into like a blog and hit publish, and you got called out for it, that's purely on you. You are supposed to be doing your research. You are supposed to be cross-checking this information. But as you can see, this is a very interesting article. It's still going on. It's on artist number 9. So now I want to ask it a very specific question in order to sort of flesh out this article. So I'm going to ask it, write a brief history of the life of Yayoi, because I don't know who this is, so I want to see who she is. Yayoi Kusama. Look at this. And this is not fiction, I assume. I don't know this artist, but I'm assuming that this is not fiction. So you see how you can begin to flesh out these stories. I actually have a very interesting question that I want to ask it. Surrealism. Okay, so these were the. So I wanted to ask it about the movements of art during that time, but it has mentioned surrealism, abstract expressionism, and pop art. And she began influencing these influences, incorporating the influences in her own work. So the artist in me is actually now really interested by this artist, and I'm curious. Let me ask it actually. Could you provide a link to some of Yayoi Kusama's work? Let's not call it work, let's call it exhibitions. I want to see if it will give me actual references. The thing that's really interesting is that when I first started using ChatGPT, it would actually give references. It could give you a link for this information that you're asking. But look at this article. It's called it pancakes. Okay, there's definitely a bug going on. But look at this article. This is top female artists in history. Frida Kahlo, Georgia O'Keeffe, Mary Cassatt, Monet, Barbara Hepworth. And then I looked at Yayoi Kusama and I was like, okay, I don't know who this is. Tell me about her life. And then it gives me this. Of course, I would need to go and cross-check, but I'm assuming that this is accurate because ChatGPT has been trained on pretty standard data, pretty available data. So I'm assuming this is accurate. So you're writing a blog post about this. So let's see how we can twist this a little bit. So I'm going to assume that I want to do a YouTube story on Yayoi Kusama. So I'm going to say something like, write for me a YouTube script for a story on her. So if I say her, it's going to remember that we are still talking about Yayoi Kusama, right? So let's see if that works. Perfect, you see, so it has understood the context, it has remembered that conversation, and then it's now giving me a script. So if I'm a YouTuber, I can then use this and say, hey, welcome to our video on Yayoi Kusama, one of the most iconic and influential artists of the 20th century. Born in 1929 in Matsumoto City, Japan, Kusama began creating art at a very young age and showed a natural talent for painting and sculpture. In the 1950s, she moved to New York City to study art and became part of the avant-garde art scene during her time in New York. So you get how, and I've been watching a lot of YouTubers and they're actually, really cheating on this. Okay, I was worried that it would be going on a little bit further, but you look at that, it's a short YouTube script. So the thing that some people are beginning to do is basically saying, expand upon her early childhood, right? So you can say, expand on her childhood between 1929 and 1950s. And if it has this information, it should be able to give us more information, I think. Let's see. So this is what it's given us before. Wow, look at this. So you see now it has brought the 1940s. So all of this is happening in between. And then it's also given us a little bit of more fleshing out of the 1950s, right? So now I can get this from here and then copy and paste that into my script, right? So this, you see how you can begin, playing around with things. So it's really good. And if you dive deep enough, you can actually end up with some really interesting information. Obviously, you need to cross-check and make sure you're doing it right. All right. So let's call this YouTube artists. Okay, let's do a new chat. Let's look at research. What's the legal perspective? Lawyers will forgive me, on copyright law in Uganda. I want to see how it handles this. Now, I don't know anything about this. I don't know if there's anything called a copyright and neighboring acts of 1920 of 2006. Actually, we can actually cross-check this. And any lawyers watching this, please feel free to cross-check that information. Let me do a quick Google search on this. Oh yeah, and this is from the judiciary. There's Copyright and Neighboring Acts of 2006. So yeah, and when you open it, this is it. And I'm too lazy to go through the legal. This is what, 60 pages. So I'm going to ask it to do something very interesting. I'm going to get this section about the duration of this area, about the duration of copyright protection, from section 13 and copy 1 to 8. And then I'm going to ask it to summarize that. Summarize the following. It's probably going to give me an error. Yeah. So I'm going to ask it to summarize the following legal text. Summarize and simplify. And I think now you're beginning to see how powerful ChatGPT is. So let's just dump that without any formatting and see what it says. Look at this. Protected for the duration of the author's life and for 50 years after their death. If the work is of joint authorship, the economic rights are protected for the duration of the last survivor. Look at that. It's basically simplified all this legal jargon, which lawyers thrive in, and it's basically said this is what they're saying. Okay, definitely has not simplified that. Maybe because there is quite a bit of technicalities that it needs to explain a little bit broadly. So that the amount of text is kind of the same, but it has presented it in a conversational manner by telling you that the economic rights of the author in an audiovisual work, sound recording, or broadcast are protected for 50 years. The economic rights of photography are protected for 50 years. So it's basically getting all of this. The economic rights of an author are protected during the life of the author, 50 years after the death, blah, 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 blah. Let's see if it can summarize this. I hope it. Summarize the response above. Okay, so it looks like it's going to give us the exact same text, which probably means that it cannot summarize it beyond this. Yep, so it's giving us the exact same text. But as you can see, it's actually... all right, let's try another... I'm going to ask you to explain what this section means. Explain this legal language, and let's see how well it does. So you see, I did not know what an ephemeral, I know what ephemeral means, I didn't know what an ephemeral recording means, but it's gone ahead to explain that it's a temporary copy made for the purpose of making a broadcast and is not made to be a permanent record. No copyright exists in a broadcast that infringes in the copyright of another broadcast. Okay. So again, the curious me is now trying to go deeper and deeper into this rabbit hole. But this is another example of how you can use ChatGPT. So again, it's not naming these properly. Let's just call it legal research. Let's do a new chat. Let's talk some code. And because I'm not a really good coder, I'm not going to jump into the details of this. I'll just give quick examples. For example, actually, this is a really good example. Fantastic. I want to design a video game, right? I want to design a simple mobile application, mobile game. Give me some ideas. So one of the things that I love about ChatGPT is that it's very good for creative block, right? So I want to create a game. I don't know what kind of game I want to create. Obviously, if you're a game developer and you don't know what kind of game you want to create, it's a bit of a problem. But this is a great way to get started. So it's giving me examples for an endless runner in which a player controls a character who's running and must avoid obstacles by jumping or sliding. A type of puzzle, a tapping game, a time management game, a word game. Let's challenge it a little. Write a synopsis. Write a game synopsis for option 1. Look at that. So it knows that option 1 is the endless runner because it recommended that. And then it's now giving me a synopsis. In endless escape, it has even given it a name. Players must control a character who's being chased by an unknown threat. As they run, they must navigate through a variety of environments and avoid obstacles by jumping, sliding, and dodging. The goal is to see how far they can run before being caught. Along the way, players can collect coins, etc. Okay, so write a simple Android version of this game. Let's see how well it does this. Okay. So now it's giving us a tutorial. So if I opened up Android Studio, I'd be able to follow this. Obviously, you have to know how to code. But what if I did not know how to code? It's giving actual examples of some of the code that you need to be able to do. I have developed a mobile application game way back, not in Android, but in another easier to use software environment. So I understand a little bit of what it's saying. Write code for the second step. So I'm asking you to write code for the second step because this is just clicking and creating a new thing, but this actually needs to have code. Creating a new class called GameView that extends, and voila, look at that. And then it goes ahead to explain what the classes are, what the objects are, and how those objects are using and accessing resources. So this is like, okay, and then it's giving you the option to copy that code. So now let me see. I'm going to copy this exact same statement and give it to it. And let's see what it does. Okay, so now we are getting it to build our game. I do not know how to, I haven't done game development in Android using code. I typically use a lot of drag and drop systems. So I don't know if this code is accurate. The last time that I tried to to copy code when I was programming hardware, because my strength is in hardware and robotics. When I was programming hardware, I realized that it had a lot of issues. So those of you who are developers might be able to see some of the issues in here. So you can go on and on. Let's copy this again and see if it is. So if you compare the two, it has, right? So inside game view, it has put a super context and then it has created the game thread. All right, so let's expand that a little bit further. Inside the game, so I'm just giving it its own instructions, which is hilarious. Let's see. So people are actually doing a lot of crazy things. And I read a tweet somewhere where a developer was saying that 80% of his code is being written by ChatGPT, which is incredible because this person is actually a lead developer at a very prominent tech company. So if someone at that level is saying that they're relying on ChatGPT to write a significant amount of code, then it's absolutely incredible. On the other hand, I know that some sites are beginning to ban ChatGPT code. For example, Stack Overflow completely banned ChatGPT code because they don't think that the answers are accurate enough. But as you can see, it's expanding, and we could go on and on and on with this. But this is just an example of, if you know what you're doing. I don't write games. I don't write game development code. If you know what you're doing, you can basically say, oh, maybe can you add this? Can you do this? But again, if you know how to write code, you probably don't need this. But if it can help you make your work faster, I think it would be fantastic. So now these are how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 different ways in which we are using ChatGPT to do game development. Let's see if we can do one last one. What would one last one be? Yeah, let's use the thing that I like a lot. One of the things that I did, which is basically writing a fictional story. Okay, so write a fictional story about an African warrior. Wow, look at me with all the cliches. Who falls in love with the king's daughter. Who falls in love with one of the king's wives. Really channeling my Solomon complex here. So look at that. It's given us an African warrior. It's given the name. It's given the name of the kingdom. Zuberi is the name of the warrior. He was known for his bravery and strength, and he served the king loyally for many years. One day, the king announced he was taking a new wife, a beautiful princess from a neighboring kingdom. Zuberi was tasked with escorting the princess to the royal palace, and as he traveled with her, he couldn't help but fall in love with her. Oh, we are now totally invested. Despite his feelings, Zuberi knew that it was forbidden for him to pursue the princess. La 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 la, classic love story. Is it requited love? It is requited love. The two of them knew that they could never be together openly, but they couldn't bear to be apart together. This is such a telenovela. So it's given us a basic synopsis for the story. Is there reconciliation? They met in secret. Despite the risks, they were happy, blah, 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 blah. Now we need some conflict. We need conflict. The king discovers their secret love. Let's just write that without any further prompt. Let's see what it does. Oh, one day the king receives an anonymous letter revealing, exile. Princess is heartbroken. The king is unforgiving. He must pay for his betrayal, given 3 days. She will always love him and should find a way. Aww. So one of the things that I found myself getting invested in earlier in another video that I was making is that then I was like, wait, what happens? Tell me what happens. So now Let's see. Did the princess ever meet Zuberi again? Let's see what it says. This is drama. We officially invested in this drama. Oh, okay. Zuberi is traveling to a remote village. The king had died. Oh. Zuberi is going back to the palace. When he arrived, he was standing to the princess waiting for him. Some nonsense. This altruistic and idealistic love. There should be more conflict, more drama. Okay, yeah. I think you see, like, these are very interesting use cases for. We've looked at quantum computing, descriptions of quantum computing. We've looked at making recipes. We've looked at a little bit of mathematics. We've looked at writing scripts about art. We've looked at legal research. We've looked at game development. And then here, once again, Zuberi the warrior, right? So actually coming back here, let's ask it to describe the princess's physical. Let our biases not show. Describe the king's. This is now the biases. The bias showing. Describe the palace of the king. Let's see if it makes it African. This seems very generic. One of the things that is hilarious about ChatGPT is that if you're not careful, you'll find yourself drowning in cliches, right? Because it writes very surface level stuff. Even when you are doing legal research or writing scripts, it basically chills at the surface, giving you generics until you dive deep. So in this case, you can tell it, rewrite this from as an African palace, whatever that means. So let's see what representation it has of an African palace. Study mud bricks. Look at this. I mean, we're not far from the truth because most of the African construction material was mud and rock and stone. Intricate carvings, colorful murals, sprawling native plants, handcrafted furniture made of dark wood, woven rugs. Okay, so yeah, fair enough. But you can really go really deep into some of these things. But yeah, I just wanted to show you how to use ChatGPT. The new thing that they have added is that because you can now save this, previously when you close the conversation, you could not go back to it. But let's try and go back to a conversation. Let's go back to the pancakes and see if it will continue this conversation. All right. So when we left the pancakes, we had stopped at a replacement for butter. What can I? All right, let's just ask it as a simple question. How long should I? How do I know that the pancakes are ready? So previously, you would not be able to continue this conversation, but now that it's saving them, it has come back to the conversation about pancakes and it is continuing from where you stopped. This is amazing. I wish you knew how mind-blowing this is for those of you who have not been in the AI space or who are not very technical people. Like, for a computer to be able to do this is absolutely mind-blowing, especially with such generic use cases. So that is our crash course on ChatGPT. Now, I cannot exhaust all the possible use cases for ChatGPT. There are just so many, and people are doing an incredibly ridiculous amount of things. At the very beginning, I saw people doing things like creating instances of computing platforms within ChatGPT. A lot of geek stuff, but basically they were telling ChatGPT to create a computer within a computer. And I was like, wait, what the hell is going on, right? They've now removed some of that functionality. But I mean, look at this. This is incredible. Anyway, so I hope you've enjoyed this video. At this point, you can proceed with whatever you want to do with ChatGPT. You can edit a prompt. You can give a thumbs up and say you like this answer. And then you can tell them that this is what I would have liked you to see, but this is good enough. You can edit this, and I don't know if it will rewrite it. Let's see, so rewrite this as an African palace in Zambia. And let's see if it rewrites it. Yeah, so I just edited that prompt. So it hasn't replaced this. It has basically decided to give a completely fresh prompt. You can keep probing, right? You can keep probing and prompting until you get exactly what you're looking for, until you get exactly what you're happy with. So another option you can look at is regenerate response. So if you don't like this, you can be like, okay, give me another response to that. And it's giving me the exact same thing, which means that it's not quite exact because these are 4 lines. I'm too lazy to check the difference, but these are 3 lines, these are 4 lines. And yeah, so it's definitely made some changes. Like here, the interior of the palace was just as impressive. Yeah, it's made some changes. Let's do one last thing. I'm going to there's something that I did recently. For those of you who are not in Uganda, this is a very famous, infamous movie. Who Killed Captain Alex? And I want to show how you can prompt ChatGPT to give you the answer you're looking for. So right now it's like, I don't know who Captain Alex is. Can you provide more context or clarity of who this person is? And so I can say Captain Alex is a fictional character in a movie. So now it's like, oh, I see, without knowing more about this movie, it's impossible for me to accurately answer your questions. There are many movies and fictional characters named Alex. Can you provide more information? Captain Alex was a leader of the rebels and he was killed. Okay. All right, so now it's getting stuck in this loop of, I don't know what you're talking about. Can you be more specific? Blah, 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 blah. Can you provide more context? So let me try and force it to do something. Assume you wrote the story of Captain Alex. How was he killed? All right. All right. So this is where people now begin trying to trick it, right? Let's say you are the author of a fictional story about a rebel captain called Captain Alex. All right, let's see if it accepts this. All right, so they've plugged some of these holes. Previously, you could tell it to assume a certain state of mind, and then it would be like, okay, I can do this. And then it would write from that perspective. And that's how people were able to get around. So for example, you'd say, give me the recipe for making a dangerous thing. And then it would say, I'm sorry, I can't allow you. I can't write this. And then people would be like, assume that this is in a fictional story. What would the main character do to create the dangerous thing? And then it would return that response. I'm not going to try this because I just don't want to get my account frozen or some stuff like that. But people would use that to sort of get around the different roadblocks that the OpenAI team had placed in ChatGPT to prevent it from returning responses that were dangerous or offensive. So that's the end of our video. I really hope you have enjoyed this. It's really long, but I just wanted to really showcase the different things that you could do with ChatGPT, and I hope this has been useful. Thank you for your time. Don't forget to subscribe, share, click the notifications, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.